So what exactly is Muggins or Cutthroat in Cribbage? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. So, Muggins, or Cutthroat as it's also called, is a special rule in Cribbage. It's kind of a variation, but it doesn't change the game that much. So, a Muggins is one of the most, actually, it's the only really official optional rule in Cribbage, okay? So, what Muggins is basically as you're playing the game and you're going along and you're counting your pegs and you're counting your hands and stuff like that, if during the play or pegging or during the show or when you count your hands, if you fail to count your cards correctly, Muggins or Cutthroat starts to apply. If you undercount your hand, so let's say, for example, your cards added up to a value of 10, but you only counted 8 of them, then the opponent can call Muggins, in which case those missing 2 points that you didn't have, they get to count them. Ugh, not good, right? It's really important in this type of game to make sure that you count as awesomely as possible. The other side of Muggins or Cutthroat is that when you overcount, so if you had 10 points but you counted 12, in that case, the opponent gets those 2 points you overcounted. So, yeah, it's kind of dangerous, but it's better for more accurate play. I was playing with my 10-year-old the other day, and he's playing great. He really gets most of the strategies of the game, and he counts pretty well, but sometimes he gets so excited that he just kind of stops counting and just keeps going. And loses where he's at. So I told him, and usually what I tell him is that the first couple hands that we play, I'll say, okay, after this one, Muggins is going to come into effect. And things like that. But now he's getting old enough where I'm like, hey, we're just going to play that way all the time. If you're not going to count your cards right, I'm going to take your points from you. And that kind of thing. So the most common places for Muggins or Cutthroat to show up in Cribbage is during the play, which is when you're counting, especially with sequences and the runs in the play and pegging. Because remember, they don't have to be in order for it to work that way. They can be a huge stretch of cards. Like it could be a 3, 4, and then you could do a 6, and then someone could play a 5, 3, 4, 6, 5, flipped around as a run. So the person who plays the 5 gets 4 points for that. So you got to be aware of what those are and where they go. And speaking of runs, if you want some help counting runs, I've got a great video on that, so make sure you watch that. But don't go anywhere yet, because there are official rules for Muggins with the American Cribbage Congress that I'd like to cover with you. That way you know what to expect if you ever play in a grassroots or a tournament. All right, Rule 10 is Muggins. So Muggins is the only optional rule, it says right here, and that officials have to announce if you're playing through Muggins. At the grassroots that I play in, we don't play with Muggins. If someone miscounts, like I caught someone miscounting the other day, they missed like 6 points. I wish Muggins had been in effect, but that's just not how we play. But they have to announce that it's that Muggins is in effect. But here's another one, and I didn't know this until I was going over the rules, and I'll put a link to this PDF in the description if you really want to read the official rules. When Muggins is in effect, you must peg out to win the game. So you could be at 120. On the 120th hole, you need 121 to get out. If someone miscounts, you don't get to take their points to peg out. It has to be of your own power, okay? Now, in this case, in the official rules, now the way I played Muggins and the way that the Cribbage Pro plays Muggins is that overpegging is a penalty too. But Muggins can only be applied to underpegging, and it can't be underpegging a penalty. So if some other rule is broken and the tournament director or the judge comes over and gives them a penalty and they underpeg the penalty, you just correct them. You don't get to take their points from their penalty. And it's the same thing of a Muggins score. So let's say that the score was 10 and you counted 5. And I said, oh, wait, you got 3 more, but there's actually 5 more. You don't get Muggins off my Muggins. It's just done at that point. Same thing with the Jack or his heels as the starter card or nibs. That one you don't get to count that for Muggins. You just point it out to them and they get it. And points by a loss by a player pegging backwards, that kind of thing. Okay, cool. And then there's a couple more detailed rules, like you have to say, I get Muggins for this many points, and you raise it up to them and that. And you cannot peg them till you agree. If you have to call a judge can come over and that kind of thing. I actually encourage you to play Muggins as much as possible because the risk of losing those points really encourages you to slow down and take your time when you're counting and scoring. If you need help with scoring, check out any of the videos in the playlist or check out this very specific video I made on every bit of scoring possible and tips on how to make sure you get every point every single time.